Welcome to episode 5 of my New York City 2023 Marathon Training Series, The Recap. TLDR, the race did not go well. It wasn't the race I planned for, but it's the race I got. And you know what? That's the beauty of racing, is because so much is out of your control. Even if you're super well prepared, you could have a horrible race. And if you're not well prepared, you sometimes can have a great race. Yesterday was probably one of the most painful experiences I've ever had as an athlete in any sport I've ever done or raced in, and I've raced in a lot of different sports. But I finished, and that was what I set out to do. I said in the last episode that I didn't feel like I got enough miles in or enough volume in for marathon training, for all sorts of reasons that I had struggled with last month between my foot, between recovery and sleep and diet. I just couldn't get the volume in. And boy, I paid for that here. But overall, the day did not go as planned. I finished with, I think, 5 hours, 4 minutes, 47 seconds. That's my official time. But the time doesn't really matter. I honestly don't care about the time, and I'm honestly not that heartbroken about the race. Obviously, I wish it went differently, but I learned a lot, and that's what's key. I think I finished, which is what I set out to do, and it was a struggle, and I'll get to that, but I learned a ton, and I experienced some things that I had never experienced as an athlete across any sport I've ever done. Let's start at the beginning. Let's go back to my morning. Now, my trip to the start line was uneventful. I picked the Staten Island ferry. I was on the first ferry at 5:30. By the way, if you've never been to New York City, make a point to get on the Staten Island ferry. It's one of the most iconic things you can do in the city, and it's a beautiful ride, especially coming back from Staten Island to Manhattan. Highly recommend it. But I was there at 5:30. It was dark. It was cold. I just did not want to be in the cold at that point because I was freezing. I had a bunch of layers on, but I was freezing. Got to the start line, found my corral. I was in the pink corral, which was the one that was way far away from everyone else. And then the actual corrals were on the opposite side of the Verrazano from the village, the pink village, which just made the whole thing awkward. I think it was actually probably the worst village, but it was probably the best corrals. I was there like 2 hours early because, again, everything was pretty uneventful, and I just focused on trying to relax because I was super nervous. I actually ended up taking a nap. They had some straw on the grass in the open area. Took a nap for about 20 minutes. The cannon actually woke me up, I think, for the first wheelchair racers that went off. Scared me to death. Anyway, got ready, got my kit on, got the shoes on, used the porta potties the one last time, the ones in the corral. Thank God they were there because the other ones were a mob. And found the pace group. I found the 3-hour, 20-minute pace group in my corral, which was my plan. Now, my plan for this race was to go out conservatively, not at the 4-minute, 30-second pace per kilometer that I had been training towards, which would have given me like the 3-hour 10 marathon, but to go out at 3:20, a little bit more conservative, a little bit slower. So it was about a 4:45, 4:50 pace, somewhere in there. And I was really happy to find the pacer, and I stuck with them. Now, the start of the race was, I think, a little weird. I'm used to getting the corral group together, then they kind of push everyone forward, and then they move that like body of people up to the start line. We did that, but I think I was pretty far back in my corral. So I think by the time the front of the corral got to the start line and the start started, the gun went off, my part of the corral was just coming around the corner, getting into the start line. So I never really had that moment of pause where you get ready, you feel the anticipation. It's just I rounded the corner, I saw people running, so I started running. And it was a little chaotic, not ideal. Also, because I was on the lower level of the Verrazano, my watch didn't connect till about 200 meters into the course, which was super frustrating. That really threw me off at first. But after about 5K, I realized I was about 2.5K off the actual distance on the course. So at least I knew that. But, once I kind of got going, once I got over the whole watch thing, going up and around the Verrazano, it was really no problem. I stuck with the group. In fact, all the way up into 4th Ave, I stuck with the group, the pace group. Really, I felt strong. I felt great. Really, no problems. Really, no problems staying with the group. It was chaotic everywhere because the Verrazano, the lower deck is very, condensed. You're all packed onto a very small road. And even once we got onto 4th Ave, it was still chaotic because the race never really opened up, really ever for me. When it did open up a little bit, again, I was sticking with the pacer. There'd be a water station because there was a water station every 2 miles. And that water station would condense everyone back together because there'd just be the chaos of the water station. And that happened a few times. That forced me to kind of speed up to, catch the group again. Just chaos all the way up 4th Ave, and it never really stopped. But I felt strong. I felt good. I felt very in control of my pace. I was stuck to 4 hours, 4 minutes 50 pace per kilometer. My watch was that stuff was going off like clockwork per km. There were a couple faster splits in there just to catch up, make up space because I got gapped by the pacer. But in general, pacing was really good. I felt really strong, felt really good. We got through 4th Ave, we got through all the water problems, the water stations, and we got to Lafayette Avenue, and we went through really the section that I was most worried about. So to me, the Verrazano to 4th Avenue, I didn't really have any worries about because, again, I've run on 4th Avenue so many times. It was very comfortable for me to run there. It was actually nice to be back there because I hadn't been back there for almost 4 years. Stuff that I had trained on my daily runs for some time. Felt really comfortable in that. The section I was dreading of the race the most was basically Lafayette to Bedford to Manhattan up to the Queensboro Bridge because I know that's very twisty and it can be very narrow. It turned out it was a lot narrower than I expected because, as people crowded in onto the streets. And then there's still a lot of stuff on the streets in New York City. So the streets are even narrower, especially on Bedford Avenue through Williamsburg. So I got through that section okay. The course got very narrow in a few places. It packed everyone up where I was in the race, and I had to play catch up a few times to the Pacers. But again, I didn't feel like I was exerting myself, and I felt, again, pretty good, pretty strong. Nothing was actually bothering me. Oddly, my foot, my toe, nothing, no problems there, nothing bothering me. My stomach was fine. I was hitting my gels. I was getting water at the stations through the chaos. I was hydrating. Everything was good. We got into Long Island City, which is the base, the Queens side of the Queensboro Bridge. I remember the Pacers saying, like, look, temper back, stay calm. You got to get over this bridge. And my plan had been, once I got over the Queensboro Bridge and I got onto First Ave in Manhattan, which was really, to me, the second half of the race, though it's really only about 10 miles to go, that's where I was going to kind of turn it on to see what I had, because my plan was to negative split. Go out for the first half conservatively, but in control, and then try to speed that up in again, negative split in the second half. So we got onto the bridge, got over the bridge on the ramp down, got onto 59th Street. Just as I was turning 59th Street to First Ave, I saw my Pacers. I had kind of lost them a little bit just because, again, there's a crush of people when you're getting off the Queensboro Bridge because the ramp narrows down a little bit. And again, I was never in really a lot of open space anywhere up until I got into Manhattan. And I saw them a little bit up ahead, and I'm like, okay, let's turn it on. Let's see what I got. I want to get them, and I wanted to gap them. I wanted to get ahead of them, because then I knew that would be like the broom wagon for me, because it could keep me in check to make sure that I was doing the pace I wanted to, or at least that would be my fallback point. But I was going to try to push to go faster. Got onto First Ave, and literally as soon as I hit First Ave, started to kind of, put some effort into my stride, my left thigh completely locked up. And within a few meters, my right thigh completely locked up. like they felt like they were wood. They just wouldn't work. I could barely walk. I slowed down to a walk at that point because that's all I could do. Now, I have never experienced cramping. I feel kind of lucky, especially after yesterday, knowing what cramping is. But in all the racing that I've done, I've never cramped. I've gotten leg cramps like sitting on the couch and you have to stretch your leg out or a muscle. I've gotten those. But in like an athletic endeavor, racing skateboards, racing snowboards, racing bikes, and running, I've never, ever gotten it once. Now I've gotten it. So now I know what people are talking about. And it is not nice because my legs, literally my thighs felt like wood. I could, it's not that I couldn't move them, but I couldn't do anything. I couldn't pick my leg up to move fast. I couldn't even run. So within like once I got under the Queensboro Bridge on First Ave, I was walking and I saw there was a water station a little bit, probably looked like about 3/4 of a kilometer from where I was on First Ave. So I set a goal, say, okay, something's going on here. I'm going to try to walk it out to that water station, hydrate again. And I had been doing Gatorade and water at each water station and then see what I got, see where I can go. Well, I hobbled my way to that. I was trying to stretch my legs out, trying to kick them out, just trying to stay as fluid as I could, though I was walking, hobbling, if you will. Got to the water station, did the Gatorade, did 2 cups of water because I was walking, so I could go slow now and drink all I wanted. And when I got to the end of the water station, no changes. Like my legs, my thighs in particular, still were not there. They would not allow me to run. I tried to run a little bit, and the best I could do was like a shuffle jog. Like I was actually walking faster than I could run. So now my brain starts to go to, okay, well, this is not good, and it's not going to be the day that I wanted, obviously. So now what? And my now what was, well, I'm going to finish this race. I don't care what the time is. Time is out at this point. I have about 9 miles more in the race. I'm going to finish this race. If I have to walk the next 9 miles, which I ended up having to walk most of it, I'm going to finish this race. So there I went. I set off walking up First Avenue. I walked across the Bronx and I walked back down Fifth Avenue. Now, what I was doing was I was sort of hobbling, walking, and by about 110th Street or so, 100th Street on First Ave, I actually had felt pretty loose. My legs, my thighs started to come back a little bit. But as soon as I started to run, really as soon as the jog turned faster than jog into a run, then my thighs would stiffen back up. So by about 100th, 110th Street, I was sort of walking about, I don't know, half a kilometer, running about 1/4 of a kilometer, walking, running, jogging. Like I was doing a mix of all that. I was just trying to move as fast as I could, which was not fast at all. Got around the Bronx, got back onto Fifth Avenue, got to the base of the hill at 110th Street on Fifth Avenue, of the hill that I warned everyone about in my course breakdown, and I struggled up that hill. That was enough of a hill that just lifting my leg up just a little bit more completely decimated my thighs. Like whatever was left made my thighs even more wood. Now my calves and my feet were starting to join the party of pain as well, because my calves were tightening up because I had been walking in Vaporflies. Vaporflies are the worst possible shoe to walk in ever. Now, I had just probably walked, I don't know, 4 miles in Vaporflies. So now my feet are hurting because of Vaporfly walking. My calves are starting to get sore now. It wasn't the same cramping of what was going on in my thighs. They were just getting sore from walking in Vaporflies. And I'm going up this hill on Fifth Avenue. Now, when I got to the top of the hill around 92nd, entering the park on 90th, I kind of thought, okay, most of this is going to be downhill. There's rollers and there's one up there that I was worried about, but most of that's going to be downhill. Maybe I can run on that. I don't know. I got into the park. I tried to run. I managed maybe, I don't know, 100 meters of jogging. And my legs, especially my thighs again, said no. There were so many people on the loop in Central Park that we were compressed down to like maybe one lane of traffic. So it was heartbreaking for me as a runner and a New Yorker to be in this, like, one of the most iconic parts of the most iconic race to me as a New Yorker, with all of this energy, all these people cheering for you, hobbling downhill through all that stuff. But you know what? I put that aside and I just focused on, okay, I know this park really well. I knew exactly what was coming. It really helps me really conserve energy and really factor in my energy. I did manage to run maybe about a kilometer collectively across the entire section of uh, Central Park, going down to 59th Street again. But it was not fast. I mean, I was maybe doing like 7 minute per kilometer pace, but it was better than a jog. And it really helped me knowing what was coming so that I could manage my effort. I could step back and walk. But all of those hills and going up those hills really killed my thighs, what was left. Got to 59th Street. I decided, okay, this is my YOLO moment. I don't care what's going to happen now. I was going to run to the finish. So I managed to run from, the corner of Grand Army Plaza and 59th all the way to the finish. And by the time I got into Central Park off Columbus Circle, I was actually running about 5 minute per kilometer pace, which was really my fallback, everything goes wrong pace. That felt very comfortable. That was sort of what I called aerobic pace in training. And I was actually really happy to be running 5 minute pace for the last, 200 meters of the race to the finish. And I finished at that pace. 59th Street, I ran the entire way. And oddly, by the time I got into Columbus Circle, my legs hurt so bad and my feet were killing me because of all the walking I'd done in Vaporflies. But I was running and I actually felt the most comfortable I've been running since I got off the Queensboro Bridge. Should I maybe pushed a little bit harder? I don't know, because I honestly think if I did that earlier, I probably wouldn't have finished, because there was a couple points towards the end of Central Park where I was seeing people on the side of the road. There was medical people. There was people like, stiff as a board because like they were cramped up. There was a couple of ambulances, off Grand Army Plaza. I didn't want to be that because I wanted to finish. I did not want to DNF. So that's why I walked and jogged as much as I could. But by 59th Street, I knew there was nothing that was going to stop me from finishing this race. So I just threw in whatever I had left. So crossed the finish line, saw my tape time. Now, because my watch was short, because it started, 200 meters off the finish line, I kept my watch running, which is what's on, in Strava and all that sort of stuff, for the walk. And now that walk from the finish line to exiting Central Park, where you pick up all your stuff, you get your medal, you get your bib, you get the parka, you get everything in there, was probably the most torturous thing I've done the entire day. That was already a torturous, painful day. Because now the race is over. I crossed the finish line. I did it. But now I have to get out of the park. And it was horrible because no one's helping you. We're all packed into this very narrow road. I'm like, I've got this bag of stuff. I've got my like poncho. I've got my medal. I'm trying to like stay on my feet. I want to drink something, but I'm holding all this stuff in my hands. Like, literally no one helped. And I'm saying the New York Roadrunners people, no one helped. And there was actually volunteers saying, don't hand things to people. Just, get stuff out on tables or get out of people's way. If anything, runners probably need the most help after they cross the finish line. I saw a lot of people suffering. I wasn't the only one suffering. And by the time I got to my meeting point with my wife on Columbus Ave, it looked like a battle had just happened, because there's all these people in orange ponchos and they're struggling. Some people were fine, but a lot of people were struggling, limping, having to be like lean on their friends, basically. Like the post finish line experience of the New York City Marathon for just an average runner, not an elite runner, not a VIP, is frankly horrible. I don't know what else could be done there, but overall, the expo was good. This getting to the start line was fine for at least as big of a race as this was. The race itself, I think, was really well done. I didn't have any problems on course other than my own problems. But that finish line experience and that getting out of the park, something needs to be done there. That is one of the worst experiences I have ever had. And I never want to repeat it. And being someone who knows that walk and knows that area really well, there is at least 4 or 5 other areas I could have quickly got out of the park if they weren't gated off with chain link fence, which would have been really useful because it would have saved me a lot of walking. Now, I know they do that because they want people to walk and not stiffen up, but if you're already dead, you're already stiff, you're already at the end of your rope, and you took everything it could to get over the finish line, don't make people walk another quarter to a half mile. That's horrible. So I was really, really shocked by that and really upset about that by the time I met my wife, finally sat down, got my shoes off, got my feet sort of beginning to take care of and started to stretch my legs out. And honestly, my wife had gotten Gray's Papaya hot dogs. Again, if you've never been to New York City, highly recommend that you have to go there. It's iconic hot dogs. And that salty hot dog with the mustard and everything, as soon as I had that, I felt a lot better. Got some more Gatorade in me, got some water. I recovered. I'm sitting here less than 24 hours later. I'm fine. I'm sore, but I'm fine. The race was not what I wanted, but, I learned a ton from it. So that's my story. I ultimately didn't put enough miles in training. I think that's the most obvious thing here because I was hydrated, I was fueled, I was nailing my fueling plan, and frankly, first half of the race, the first half marathon, I did that in under 140, which is not a PR for me, but given that I was going out very conservatively, I'm very happy with that time. And I know if I would have gone out at my normal pace or gone out with a little bit more effort, I could have definitely gotten closer to like probably 127, 126 even, which would have been a PR for me. So I was adequately trained for a half marathon, not a full marathon. And what's really interesting is I look back at my training and I realized that my longest run in the entire training block was about 18.9 miles. And my legs gave out at just about 16 miles. So yeah, this is a case of I just didn't get enough volume. You got to respect the marathon distance because it will get you. It will teach you to respect it. And I definitely got that lesson taught to me. As far as cramping, again, I'm a heavy sweater and I felt a lot of salt on my skin, once I dried off. But again, I don't think it was a salt or sodium problem. I didn't take any salt on the course. I didn't bring salt tablets either. Martin does have a little sodium in it, and I was doing those gels every 6 to 8 kilometers, and yeah, I don't feel like that was the issue. I don't feel like I was not hydrated. I didn't really sleep well the night before, but that's been my story of the past month anyway. So I think this just comes down to I didn't do enough volume, and next marathon I do, I'm really gonna work on that volume because I think that is key for finishing the race. Now, what's really interesting is that while I did do less volume, I did feel stronger with my paces. I did feel like I was more in control of my racing. Whereas, a year ago when I did the Taipei Marathon with my bad plantar fasciitis, I was unsure if I could even finish the race. In training, I had done much more training. I had done 30 and 35K training runs in that block, but it was a struggle to finish them. So I am confident this was a volume in training issue, but what is the right volume for me? So this is something I'm going to work on over the next few months. I'm going to take some time off this winter, not from running, but in focusing or thinking about racing. I'm just going to run. I'm going to do some trail running. I'm going to work on some other stuff. So there'll be some interesting content on this channel. But as of right now, I don't have any races set up for 2024. Mostly because I don't know where I'm going to be living. There'll be more about that on this channel probably early next year. But once I get that set up, I will probably sign up for a race. I don't know if it's going to be a marathon next year. I might go back and do a half marathon next year because I'm actually curious what I could do now, given how this training block went. I'm really curious what I could do with a half marathon time. And I like the half marathon distance. So we'll see what that's going to be. And as far as that, I think I will be back to New York City. Tokyo is the next world major that I'm focused on. I'm trying to get an entry into that. I'll know if I have one in the next couple of weeks. But if that happens and I do get an entry for next year in March, I don't know if I'm actually going to do it. I may try to defer it until 2025 because I don't know if it's not that I don't know if I'll be ready, but I don't know if I want to do a marathon in 3-4 months time. But I definitely want to do Tokyo, and that's the next focus. Hopefully there I'll get the time that I was training for or better, because that's an easier course I think than New York City. Then Boston would be the next one. So I'm not done with racing, not done with marathons, not done with the world majors. I'm gonna go for that 6-star journey, but I'm gonna step back and reassess things a little bit. Focus on just enjoying running and creating content on this channel, and really getting into the weeds of all of the super shoe and shoe tech stuff that we all love. So the final thing is this medal. This one's gonna be special to me. This was a humbling race, and as a New Yorker, I wish it went differently, but this means a lot to me. And from this experience, I'm not going to forget this experience. So I'm really proud of this medal. Really happy to finally have one of these. And here's to marathon running. Here's to racing. You never know what you're going to get, no matter how well or unprepared you may be. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Now, this type of content's a little different than what I do on this channel, but if you enjoyed it, consider subscribing. You'll see more content from me pop up on your feed. If not, drop a like on this video, because it helps this channel continue to grow, which I always appreciate. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.